Sekeres Price for Tuesday, March 12th, 2024, coming to you from the Go-Goat Sports Studio, built by Arbor Lee here at the iconic Wall Center, downtown Vancouver. If you're heading out to a game, to an event downtown, make it a staycation. Call the Wall, 604-331-1000. You can ask for the Sekeres Price rate. Some blackout dates apply. Matt Sekeres alongside Blake Price, Grady Sass, hitting switches, conducting things. Big show coming up. It's all brought to you by Applewood Auto Group.
The 2023's hanging around, and that means great deals for you. Drive away in a QX50 or QX55 right now. You can lease one for 1.99% for up to 33 months. Plus, you get $1,500 in bonus cash as well. Go check it out at Applewood Infinity in Richmond. That's the Richmond Auto Mall, folks. It's all good at Applewood.
Poll question by Tim Hortons. Do you have faith Casey DeSmith will handle the starters' workload? Yes or no? You can vote at Sekeres Price on Twitter and on YouTube. Roll Up to Win is here for Tim's 60th anniversary. Play on the Tim's app to win prizes, daily cash jackpot, $10,000. To win the all-electric Volkswagen ID4 and a sun-soaked Hilton getaway. Download the Tim's app. Roll Up is on until March 31st. I voted yes. It's a tepid yes. He's been good this year. Had a little bobble after Christmas. He was okay as a starter for Pittsburgh last year, as we discussed yesterday. The one sort of bad season that Casey DeSmith has had as a National Hockey League goaltender came last year when he may well have been asked to carry too much of the load. We shall see. But what's really helping him, or should help him if it continues, is the Canucks are just playing suffocating defense right now all across the board. Carson Soucy back. They had their blips too with team defense, as Rick Tocchet aligned several times there during their poor run of play last month. But if they play like that in front of the goaltender, even Grady Sass could win them hockey games right now.
No, I don't think so. The good news is DeSmith is much better than Grady Sass. I think it's a little unfair. How many times have we talked about meaningful games in March? They are finally here, and Thatcher Demko can't be a part of it.
Well, he's a part of a few.
Yeah.
3.
But we're in the heart of it. These are the home games, the heart of the meaningful games in March. So you're right. They are playing better. In a lot of ways, it's lined up well for something like this to happen. Mm-hmm. It appears there's enough time left. Remember, it's a full 2 weeks of April before the playoffs start. In fact, it's almost, by the time game 1 of the playoffs starts, it's probably 3.
That probably bears repeating for everybody.
Yeah.
Number one, it's been a while since we've been in a playoff.
But some schedules are like April 7th, the season ends, and it's not that.
Number 2, the last time this team was in the playoffs, it was in August in the bubble. But it's pushed back the NHL regular season a little bit this year. So the first playoff game day, we're looking at April 22nd or April 23rd.
Yeah. So like Demko's back for the playoffs.
So
folks.
It's almost 6 weeks.
And he's getting in 2 to 6 games before the playoffs.
Well, the reporting is as much as a month, barring a setback. So that gives him an opportunity to get into a number. Of games.
Well, if it's on the short end, he gets a ton.
Well, yeah. If it's closer to 2 weeks, then this is almost a non-story. So long as DeSmith and that team defense,
and even if he's back, let's say it's a month from today,
right? Then he's got in Edmonton on the Saturday, April 13th, and then he's got Calgary and Winnipeg, the 16th and the 18th, in the final week of the regular season.
So really, this is again, you never sign up for these injuries.
Nope.
But it's okay. It's going to be okay. It's going to be okay.
Yeah. And, if it's 3 weeks, he would have probably 3 more games that he could get in.
And all these home games, home cooking will help as well. So we'll see.
Yeah. So our top story today, DeSmith, deStarter, and Aturs Silovs gets the call to be the backup goaltender, much as he did last year, played 5 National Hockey League games for the Vancouver Canucks. Then went off and dominated the World Championships for Latvia. He was named tournament MVP, taking his little hockey-loving country on a hell of a run there at the Worlds, the likes of which Latvia has never seen before. And that a young goaltender did it for them was quite remarkable. We had wondered whether Nikita Tolopilo might be an option here because he has been better this year, or at least better of late, against AHL competition with the Abbotsford Canucks. Also want to read this tweet from our friend Dave Hall of Canucks Army. Aturs Silovs is streaky and has dominant showings, and others where he allows incredible softies. You don't really know what you're going to get. For me, he's still the show us you can hang call-up auction with an expiring deal. Decisions are looming. Silovs is an RFA after this season. Casey DeSmith is a UFA after this season. So, Blake Price, we may well be looking at a window here while Thatcher Demko is out, whether it's 2 weeks or whether it's a month, where the decision on next year's backup is being made. If Silovs looks good, provided he plays, I suspect he'll play.
After a good 5-game showing last year, we should re-mention.
I suspect he takes a step closer to the Canucks crease and being Thatcher Demko's backup next year. Likewise, if Casey DeSmith shines, maybe you allocate some money to bring DeSmith back next year and try and give him even more starts, or at the very least, you know that you need a bona fide, credentialed NHL backup in reserve if Silovs struggles.
Matt Aturs Silovs should not be the backup next year.
What do you mean? Everybody was pointing forward to, people thought he was going to be the backup this year until they made the trade for DeSmith.
He's 23 in a week and a half. There's not many 20.
Young.
That's the problem. He should be developing. He should be playing a ton of games. The backup here will be getting 30 games max in a perfect world.
That's good, though.
That's not enough. Not for a 23-year-old goaltender. He'll play the entire season of next year as a 23-year-old goaltender. How many 23-year-old goaltenders, that have hopes for them are not playing at least every other game?
I don't know.
Silovs should be.
But why is 23 why is 23 inappropriate for being an NHL backup? Like, at some point you have to make the step.
Yeah, when you
would not be comfortable with the totality of his games over the last few years in Abbotsford, not to mention the World Championship.
What was the great scouting report you just got from Dave Hall there? The inconsistency is still there.
Okay.
This is a guy that has played a grand total of under 100 professional hockey games.
That doesn't include the Worlds, though.
No.
Okay.
No, but it's Abbotsford Canucks for
Right.
parts of 3 seasons, 10 games with the Trois-Rivières Lions in the pandemic 21-22, and the 1 game for the Manitoba Moose, believe it or not, as well. So he just needs to play more hockey games. What are you marking down there?
Lyon.
What did I say?
Lions.
Oh, my God.
They're from Trois-Rivières. They are not Lions.
We should also get to
be listening to the pod for more French fun later today.
We should get to the other news, though. There's more news.
Let me get to the other news in a second. First, Silovs is an emergency recall from Abbotsford. You may know that after the NHL trade deadline, teams get 4 call-ups from their minor league teams. So Silovs does not count against that. Important.
Yeah.
And just before we leave the crease, because it was something we didn't discuss in enough detail yesterday, Monday. Has this cost Thatcher Demko the Vezina Trophy? Because I think if Connor Hellebuck continues to play and play to his level in Winnipeg, I would suspect that this will be the deciding factor, that Hellebuck's going to wind up playing more games, likely have more wins. He's going to be on a good team at the end of unless the bottom falls out of the Jets, it did last year towards the end of the season.
Matt, if he's gone for a month, I'll start to buy into that possibility.
If he's 2 to 3, still recover?
He's played 49. There's guys that have won.
He's played third most in the league.
Yeah, so the sample size.
I'm just saying, you're going to be so close here. I think you're going to be picking things apart.
Well, also the problem is that you're asked to vote on this in the first week of April.
GMs vote on this, remember?
Yeah, in the first week of April, I think. Though I don't think they even vote after 82 games are complete. Generally, the forms go out early. So, in a perfect world, Demko's gone 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks, and he gets a few games in early April to remind people what he is. And then I think his it's his best foot forward.
Hellebuck right now has the best save percentage amongst goaltenders who are starters at 922. Swayman is second at 920. Joey Decord down the I-5 in Seattle is looking pretty good there as well. Aiden Hill, Bobrovsky, before you get to Demko on the save percentage side of things. And look, I will hear everybody screaming at me expected goals and this, that, and clear side analytics until general managers show me that that's where they are basing their Vezina vote, and that has not been the case over the years, then I'm not necessarily sure how deeply those stats are going to matter. Save percentage. Did we just do goals against or save percentage? Oh, we
Save
just
percentage.
did save percentage. Say goals against in terms of entrenched starters. You're looking at Bobrovsky, Hellebuck, and then actually a number of other goaltenders, including Decord, Luukkonen, Kochetkov, if you want to go there.
Demko's third in
247.
shutouts, but he's first amongst Vezina candidites.
Yeah.
You know, Tristan Jarry and Connor Ingram aren't winning the Vezina this year. So amongst the candidates, if we're looking at tie-breaking scenarios, Demko's got 5 shutouts, 5.5, if you will.
Yeah. An imperfect stat wins, but he leads the league right now with 34. Georgiev is 1 shy in Colorado. Bobrovsky is 3 shy. Hellebuck is 4 shy.
Now, there is precedence of a goaltender winning the Vezina with less games played than you'd normally expect. Igor Shesterkin, 21-22, only 52 games started now. The difference is he had a 935 this year. Demko's down at 917.
That's it.
And I think the consensus was, unless you talk to Homer Canucks fans, of course, that Hellebuck had already surpassed Demko.
Really?
Yeah, the betting markets reflected that
and
too.
that's fair. I would agree that he deserved to be the betting favorite.
Mm-hmm.
I would agree that he was the leader going into the stretch drive. But I by no means did I think that it was a done deal.
Over. Yeah.
No, absolutely not.
Totally
I mean, there were
fair.
still 20 games. That's a quarter of the schedule.
Right.
16 games.
And with the way they've been defending, as you guys mentioned, like there was a path to get to him back up to the top there.
Hell yeah, the way they're defending. I mean, they gave up virtually nothing to Winnipeg and had a really good week. Granted, the Kings play defensive stuff, but they had a really good week in California and Vegas before coming home and suffocating Winnipeg out of the building.
Linus Ullmark was 49 games played last year to win the Vezina.
Again, what are the goals against in the save percentage? Because if they're lights out and significantly better than Demko right now, then I think we know our pathway to where Thatcher needs to get to.
Vasilevsky in 18-19 had 53 starts with a 240 goals against and a 925 save percentage. So it's a better save percentage, but it's not 930s.
Yeah.
So there's lots of precedence. Yeah, I think as long as he gets a handful more starts, 3 to 5 more starts, I think he's absolutely got the games under his belt. He just needs to win. And honestly, you know, there's been some speed wobbles for the Jets of late, most notably against the Canucks. I think Hellebuck is still fallible, and
they rely on him so much too. Like there's a world also where he starts to crack under
that's what I'm saying.
The workload. Yeah.
Ullmark was a 928 save percentage last year and a 2.22 goals against. So both those numbers led all starters. So,
but you also have to see.
So I think we know the hill that Demko has to climb, and I think it's
last year he
had
a
much bigger one.
Ullmark had the 189, 938. You looking at playoffs?
Oh, I might be looking at playoffs. You could be wrong.
Because remember, people were and awing over how good the Bruins were in the regular season and their goalie stack.
The interesting thing is to look at the save percentage, guys. The lowest save percentage to win a Vezina in the last little bit is 922. You have to go back to Martin Brodeur in 07-08 to see a 920. And then if you're into the teens, Brodeur in 03-04 at 917. But we're talking dead puck at that point. Actually, with dead puck, you'd expect it to be higher, I suppose. But generally you need to be in the 920s. So if Hellebuck is in the 920s and Demko remains in the teens, it might be tough.
Hill to climb. Okay. Dakota Joshua. He goes to LTIR. Now he's only on a $825,000 ticket this year, you do wonder whether or not why this move couldn't have been done prior to the trade deadline, create a little bit more space. He's missed, and he makes the room for Silovs here. He's missed 12 games already in what is going down as just a needless fight in Chicago that cost a pending UFA a large chunk of what was a career season.
He's not on the ice today. That's what the honor
code in the NHL has wrought for Dakota Joshua.
Yeah.
In fighting Mackenzie Entwistle in Chicago towards the end of a nothing game where Chicago was. Anyways.
So he's not on the ice today. So you think it's at least a couple of practices before he gets into a game. So I'm going to go out on a limb and say he's at least a week away. Certainly 5 days away.
All right. So he's going to miss at least 14 games, if not more.
Yeah.
Because he'll miss the one Wednesday against Colorado. And then, of course, he's got Saturday.
So it's 20% of his season.
Against Washington.
I think that's a pretty safe bet. He's going to miss 20% of his season, career year, in a contract year, because of a fight. Yeah, it's too bad. It's too bad.
It's really too bad.
Yeah.
It's mostly too bad for Dakota Joshua. It's somewhat too bad for the Vancouver Canucks because their level dropped after Joshua left. And it's really too bad for Teddy Bluger and Connor Garland because they formed that fantastic third line that had great chemistry between them. And I suspect that they're going to stick with the 3 center icemen, which means Bluger's not going to get a chance to be back in the middle centering that line.
But you know what else Dakota Joshua has missed out on in the interim?
Goals, assists, total things that will help his free agency case.
And a plum assignment on JT Miller's line, most likely. Like, you don't think that he's usurping Mikheyev's spots right now?
Possibly.
Mikheyev keeps on getting these looks with no goals in half a season.
Right.
Dakota Joshua's getting that assignment at some point along the way. So, yeah, he's missed out on other opportunities. Now, you think, okay, well, if they had to put him on LTIR, what happens when he's ready to go? What are they going to do? Well, they're going to have to drop Friedman.
Yep.
But then you're down to no, you're not down to defense because guess who's back at practice? Tyler Myers is back at practice today.
You could be out Mark Friedman if somebody makes a claim on him, in which case you have a new 8th defenseman in the playoffs if you need to go too deep, which if you're going on a longer run, you probably at some point are going to have to go too deep.
And Christian Wolanin is still, he would be the easy decision. He's still injured. I have not heard an update. I poked around a little bit this morning trying to see if anybody's heard anything. Nothing. Like everybody else has come back, Akita Hirose and others. But Wolanin's the experienced guy. It got Matt Irwin, I suppose, but Wolanin's probably a better fit. And no word on when he's going to get back.
I would not suspect that Rick Tocchet and Adam Foote want to play Akita Hirose in the playoffs.
No,
I don't think they wanted to play him in a regular season.
I don't think they want to play Matt Irwin either. Like I think a fleet of foot Christian Wolanin is probably their preference, but he needs to get back into the lineup. So we will see. But Myers coming back gives the Canucks the chance in the not too distant future. I don't know if he draws in tomorrow. We talked about a fully healthy top 6 for the Vancouver Canuck defense corps. Knock on wood here, Canucks fans, but it might not be too far away.
Let me throw this at you. Elliot Friedman saying that the Canucks and Elias Lindholm's agent had some tough conversations this weekend. And you can understand why. I mean, if I'm his agent as well, I'm going to them and going, what happened here? Played 15 games. Okay. Didn't stand out. And suddenly he's hearing his name in trade rumors to Boston in a 3-way deal with Gensel.
Yeah.
Alvin allowed on Friday on 650 that they've offered Philip Bronik a contract. Elias Lindholm's probably not going to resign here now, right? Is that fair?
I would say.
I mean, I'm not sure it was a great bet to resign here anyways,
no,
given
wasn't.
The status of Miller.
It's not impossible,
Patterson.
but probably not.
But, you know, unless things turn here, and who knows, maybe he goes out and he has a world-beating playoffs, and the city and the market and the fan base falls in love with him, and his family does the same. They've just arrived from Calgary. and the worm turns, and we all look back and go, remember those rumors to Boston around trade deadline.
And hey, that would help, Matt, but they do have long memories too.
But, barring a turnaround of that ilk, I think it's a pretty fair bet that Elias Lindholm is going to go somewhere where he can get top 2 center minutes and top 2 center money. Does that give you a little more leash with Roenick?
In terms of what?
Well,
not being as desperate
that
looking?
He's becomes a bigger priority. Like, you're not even considering Lindholm coming back within your cap.
Oh, for sure.
But B, to be able to give him more money.
Yeah, I mean, again, I still have a $7.8 million cap myself, but you have no problem signing him to that money, I think, if Lindholm's not coming back. Correct.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it gives you peace of mind,
right,
in signing that deal.
You're going to go cheaper at third line center.
Yeah.
You're going to go appropriate salary at fourth line center. And look, Pius Suter may well be one of those 2 centers because he's under contract for next year.
Like, honestly,
he's under contract on a good number.
Matt, even a reasonable deal for Lindholm is kind of unaffordable for the Canucks. Like, I like, even if Lindholm says, fine, I'll sign for $7 million, which I think would be very low for Lindholm, given this is his last chance at big money. That's still over $2 million raise for Lindholm. Everybody's getting raises this year. How do they fit it in? And remember, Oliver Ekman-Larsson gets a raise next year as well.
Yeah,
a $2.2 million raise.
Suter incidentally is on 1.6 for next year.
You're gonna fit Pettersson, Miller, Lindholm all under the cap.
It's
no.
Miller's already there.
You're fitting Roenick under the cap.
Well, no, I'm talking exclusively centers.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I see. But the guys getting raises, they're plentiful for next year.
Now, the interesting part, Lindholm's still playing a lot.
Yeah, because he's pretty safe. Like, he's not going to cost
coaching staff. Like, we've seen players come here and not work out and hurt the Vancouver Canucks. Elias Lindholm is not hurting the Vancouver Canucks. In fact, the coaching staff, I think, is quite happy with the defensive side of the game. And coaches, they'll say, play great team, play great defense. The offense will come. So they've got a world to be patient. Really, until the Stanley Cup playoffs, Rick Tocchet and staff, they don't need a whole lot of production from Elias Lindholm.
He's
so long as you have the power play, the top 6, the Suter or the Besser and Miller combo, and Elias, not to mention Connor Garland chipping it, they're okay there.
He's kind of doing a Manny Malhotra impersonation here. His faceoffs have been good. He's playing well defensively. He's sort of looking like an old school third line center. Sporadic offense. I mean, should he be better than that? Yeah, probably. But he's not bad right now. He's actually in line with his cap hit. Like, at 4.8, like, he's playing like a 4.8 player.
Well, a new school 4.8 player.
Yeah.
When he signed that, that's the sort of money that top line guys
That's
need.
right. But right now, he's taking up an appropriate amount of the cap.
The Canucks have 4 guys on 13 goals. Lindholm, of course, most of that in Calgary. Garland, Pius Suter, and Quinn Hughes. 4 guys. And 5, because Joshua's sitting there on the sidelines with 13 goals as well. It's a hell of a derby. Dakota Joshua's got to get back.
What do we call that derby? The tier 2 derby?
Yeah, that's the battle for 5th.
Yeah.
In Formula 1, that's a big deal. Saravelli and Frank's taking some time off this week. Well deserved. Saravelli says that San Jose was trying to give away Barabanov late in the day.
I felt that. I thought Barabanov was a Canuck. I felt like he was going to be a Canuck.
And just he started in the top 6 there in San Jose, which is not saying a lot because San Jose was so poor, but he's a guy who's had some success in the past. Just the 10 points in 38 games this year, but playing 16 minutes a night with a $2.5 million cap hit as a UFA to be. And they were willing to give him away. And the Canucks said no on that, which I think lends credence to Alvin's comments Friday that they had a very narrow target board. And he even said on Friday, we didn't think there were a lot of teams, a lot of players that could help us. I'm of two minds of it. Like, I can understand wanting to go out there and get quality and not just make a trade for the sake of making a trade.
Yeah.
But I'm also of the mind you are not too many injuries away from playing guys who are nowhere close to Stanley Cup playoff worthy on the wing and on defense.
Well, yeah, and I hear that, but like, you got to store guys somewhere, and the cap exists and all that. So like, a Barabanov, does he actually present, considering cap gymnastics that you might have to execute, is he that much better than Niels Amon? Like, is he that much better? That it necessitates...
he's a winger, not a centerman, so that's, and believe it or not, he has a modified no trade, Blake.
This is the world we're living in.
10-team no trade list. Don't ask me how.
He also made the demand that he wants to go to a contender, Barabanov did, which was a tad rich.
Yeah, but he was 47 points, 15 goals in 68 games last year.
He was 47 points in 68 games?
47 points in 68 games.
Yeah.
He was 39 points in 70 games the year before.
Yeah.
So he had been a half point per game player, even better.
So then what was
who else was like that?
Mm-hmm.
Andrei Kuzmenko. What happened with him? I'm not trying to loop all Russians can't play defense, but we just moved off, a similar type of player. Tocchet talks about the staples and being smart in all zones. Maybe that's the case.
And if we're talking specific sins of this player, which is why he's not here, totally get it.
But then that goes with the acquisition cost. Like, if they're trying to give it away for free and you don't have to give up much and the cap hit's reasonable,
I think
that's where you got to weigh it.
I think for these depth players, you have to have somebody in their
point. Did they have, refresh me because he's been up and down. Did they have Vasily demoted?
No,
prior to the deadline?
On the deadline, he was with the team.
So you could have just made room for a depth winger by demoting Vasily, right?
Oh, sorry.
You didn't have to risk.
Papered back
you
down.
did not have to risk putting Oman or someone who like that.
He was papered back down.
Who is waiver eligible? Back down.
But here's the thing: on when you're getting this depth of a guy, like, he's a fourth line winger at best for the Vancouver Canucks as currently constructed.
Mm-hmm.
You probably need somebody in the organization who knows a lot about the player and is convinced of the player,
right?
And if you don't, and that just could be luck of the draw, like, you've got enough guys in your organization and gals at this point, that somebody's got a finger on the pulse of half the league probably. But if this happens to fall in the other half where nobody really knows the player that well or has a really good gut feeling on the player, then you're not going to move heaven and earth with a cap strap team to make that happen.
Any guesses on Barabanov's agent?
Is it Red Star?
Yeah. Gold Star.
Gold Star, probably. Yes.
Red Star.
Red Star Belgrade. Again,
yes.
Milan Borjan on the brain.
So,
yeah.
Add that wrinkle.
Quite a supporters group.
Yeah. But then, okay, so if he's a fourth line guy, you're getting more kind of fourth line role out of Vasily Podkolzin than you would have Barabanov, right? And you want to work with your younger prospect because he's already figured out the defensive game. It's a lot easier to have him in the lineup, and hope that he finds his offensive game. There's disruption.
There's cap gymnastics. There's a whole bunch of things and all for a fourth line winger. That's a UFA. Yeah, I get it. Yeah.
Does first place in the conference matter anymore?
Because
you're not sure how these wild cards are going to shake out, and particularly with Vegas potentially jumping the Kings for the third Pacific Division spot. Does first place in the division only matter, and first place in the conference matters not?
Well, avoiding Vegas, I think, is a good idea, but God knows how you do that at this point, because you don't know where Vegas is ultimately going to sink to. I would bet on Vegas you could make that argument that there's a good chance Vegas climbs out of the second wild card spot. Like, I have trouble believing they finish in the second wild card spot.
Mm-hmm.
So I think all things being equal, you'd rather win the conference, but I don't think it's uber critical, because if Vegas can't climb into the third spot, then they're probably not playing very good hockey when the playoffs begin. And how formidable are they going to be, despite their pedigree, if they are still so ordinary to finish off the season that they're one of the wild card teams. It usually means that Aiden Hill's not playing very well. Usually means that there's
injuries,
star players injured still. So, yeah.
Lastly here, as we go around the league, broadcaster Anson Carter, former Vancouver Canuck, is fronting a proposed ownership group for the Atlanta NHL expansion effort, suburban Atlanta, Alpharetta, Georgia. Alpharetta Sports and Entertainment Group, hoping to bring a team back to Atlanta for that market's third opportunity to show it doesn't care about hockey. He has some business partners there, one of whom has been involved with the Texas Rangers baseball team, also has investment banking and energy interests involved in sports financing, and one is the owner of an automotive group. So he's got some guy. I haven't fully vetted them on the financial side of things.
I've seen Buccigross and others point out that
and have for some time.
Yes,
these rumors.
But they pointed out that Alpharetta is where it should have been from the start. That this is, if you're going to get hockey lovers, this is going to be.
Please. Heard that about Scottsdale too. No, your city just doesn't give a shit about ice hockey. Don't care where you put the fucking arena. They just don't care.
If an extra 25-minute drive is stopping you from going to the game, you're probably not that diehard a fan. And here's the thing. Maybe they're right, but if they're not, holy cow. What an embarrassment and what a waste of time and money. And
Atlanta's not a great sports town to begin with.
No. Hawks are never well supported. Braves needed to win like 6 division titles in a row before people started coming.
And then they got complacent. They were like, we're not coming for the regular season. We'll see you in October.
We're not even coming for the DS.
Yeah, even the Falcons play before empty seats.
How much does Turner Sports being situated
I think
in
quite a bit.
Push?
I think that matters. That's meaningful to the National Hockey League because Turner stepped up with good money and frankly has done a pretty good job on the broadcast.
And Anson Carter works for them. He's on the panel.
But imagine the embarrassment, guys, if that team in their own backyard, Turner Sports is broadcasting the games and there's 12,000 people in attendance.
And you're playing before crickets.
Like, that'll look embarrassing to them.
They're going to be buying up all the tickets.
But still, you got to put human beings. And
I'm also completely against the notion of the NHL expanding further.
Yeah.
Like, you've got a real problem in Phoenix. If Salt Lake City is the next move, the next gambit there, so be it. Let's give Salt Lake City a try. Let's see how it goes there. They've had minor league hockey for a long time. It's a winter environment. Don't have the NFL. Don't have Major League Baseball. Been a one pro sport town. Let's see how it goes. But, just trying to ram, and I'll say it again, ice hockey, and I use the ice part because that's what they call it.
You don't get on E's and O's for this?
When we're talking about southern markets, we include the ice hockey to distinguish. Many of them require that.
1040 rule book in effect here.
You call Stu and statistics, let the rule book know. We'll see. I feel good about my standing with the rule book. No, but why trying to ram ice hockey down the throats of people who just don't want it?
Yeah, they
never
can
live happily without it in Orange County, California. They can live happily without it in South Florida. They can live happily without it in Phoenix, Arizona, and Atlanta, Georgia.
I mean, the Panthers are doing some better things off the ice right now.
And on the ice.
Well, they've done that before.
But how many people are watching on local television, Blake?
Yeah, I haven't
there
seen
was
that
a time when they were doing a local television audience that matched the attendance in the arena.
Yeah.
So you're doing 13 to 15,000, if that, in attendance, and about that watching in the entirety of the South Florida metropolitan region. Miami, Lauderdale, Palm Beach, all of them.
Well, we talked about arena location. Would it matter if the Panthers moved from Sunrise to Miami?
Again, Sunrise, Florida, you've been there. I've been there many times. It's a horrible place for the rink.
Yeah.
If you're staying even on the beaches of Lauderdale, you've got a hell of a drive to get there. If you're downtown,
it's close to nothing. Yeah.
Well, it's I mean, it
was 40 minutes from the hotel in Lauderdale.
Whatever it was. Yeah. There are residential communities around there, but I think you could pick up the rink and put it smack dab in South Beach and locals still wouldn't go or care.
It's possible. It's another town that's not that great for sports.
No.
The Heat have been the best supported, but other than that, even Inter. Like we'll see what happens with the minute Messi retires.
And the other thing is, look at how bad the Canucks were for so many years. There was still a pretty good live audience at Rogers Arena. We love our hockey. We can't do without our hockey.
Mm-hmm.
Look at how stinking awful Edmonton was for a decade before Connor McDavid. They still sold a good number of tickets. We love our hockey. Look at San Jose right now. And this has been one of the better Sunbelt and expansion franchises in the Gary Bettman era. I realized they came in just before Gary. It's a bad team. Not a lot of direction. They're staying away. Dallas, when the Stars are bad. There's a lot of people that are, let me know when they're a fad again. Let me know when they're on trend again. A lot of those Sunbelt markets are like that.
Yeah.
So to add another one and further dilute the player pool. And I was skeptical that the player pool could keep up with Vegas and Seattle. I can remember Bob McKenzie being the first one to tell us, no, guys, I think it's going to be okay because every young guy can play with the puck now as opposed to yesterday. You remember how bad some of those other expansion efforts were and the type of player who was elevated into being an NHL player who really had no business being an NHL player and didn't even want to handle the puck all that much. At least that part has changed. But I think it puts a further pressure on the player pool. And I'm just not necessarily sure I would want to add, because you have to
player
think
pool
come in
wise,
with 2 more teams.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I would want to add 46 more jobs to the 46 that you've already added in most recent order with Vegas and Seattle.
I think the NHL's got a great skill level right now. I think it could probably withstand 2, but I've seen a lot of chatter. This has instigated a lot of chatter on social media about, they should be going here and here and here. And you do wonder if Bettman wants to add like 4-6 more teams before he leaves. And that would be too much. 2 more. All right. You could eke it out.
Let's get to today's menu. It's brought to you by Ben Moss Jewelers. We got JPAT coming up. We'll do some hashtags, the best and worst of Twitter. Also, who else did we talk to? Oh, John Shannon. Of course. He's coming up as well. Ben Moss Jewelers, proudly Canadian owned, operated, history dating back more than 100 years. Locations: Willowbrook, Langley, Coquitlam Center. Check out the large selection of Canadian mined diamonds, lab-grown diamonds, and mined diamonds available with a payment plan to suit your needs. For more info, go to benmoss.com. Ben Moss, because love is timeless. Come join us at Park Casino, the official casino resort of the Vancouver Canucks, Wednesday, March 13th from 6 to 7 p.m. We're going to do a live pregame show at BC Kitchen. Prior to the game against the Avalanche, you get 15% off the game day menus with your game ticket at BC Kitchen.
Also, a great place to get pregame drinks, your pranks, if you will. $6 happy hour specials at the Center Bar, and it's all just steps away from the arena at Park. Also, with the Encore Rewards, get a $10 free play at the Canucks Gaming Corner as well. All that at Park.
Great Clips is the official hair salon of the National Hockey League. There are 37 salons in Vancouver and the Lower Mainland, all Canadian-owned and operated. Download the app and find the nearest to you. When you're up next for a cut, you'll get a ready next text. Great Clips. It's going to be great. Sekeres Price, we're back at the Go-Goat Sports Studio. Presentation of Applewood Auto Group. And Jeff Patterson joins us from Rogers Arena. There's an awful lot of posting.
Arena noise.
Yeah, yes. From practice. How are we doing, Jeff? What are you seeing at practice?
Well, I can't see the ice as I'm perched here, set up. I tried to get the backdrop behind me so that it had a little bit of flair to it, but 2 goaltenders out there. Aturs Silovs, as we knew earlier in the day, had been recalled by the Vancouver Canucks. And I suppose the other surprise was that Tyler Myers is back on the ice, has missed the 4 games during the win streak. I know some people are trying to draw a through line there. He is an extra along with Mark Friedman, so I don't think that he's ready to return. And again, with his schedule in the month of March, they have this luxury that they can get guys the practice days that they need to get up and running before they have to make a decision on, what is their optimal 6 when it comes to defense. And they will have some decisions to make, but it doesn't look like there will be one ahead of the game against Colorado on Wednesday night.
I saw the @Rinkwide Van poll question yesterday on which goaltender to recall, Silovs or Tolopilo. Are you at all surprised that it is Silovs given Tolopilo's recent run of play?
I'm not. And look, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I've got the full book on Nikita Tolopilo. I have seen him through development camp and training camp and have watched from afar. And, he looks like he's developing. And I think that they think that they've got something there. But I think you have to keep in mind, guys, not only did Aturs Silovs play 5 games in the National Hockey League last year, he played 5 games for Rick Tocchet. Rick Tocchet was the head coach when Silovs was recalled. And I think that there is just that familiarity. Now, again, the way the games are spaced here, I don't think that Aturs Silovs is likely to see any game action, certainly in the foreseeable future. Now, if Casey DeSmith has some wobbles and they feel that they've got to go somewhere else, the way that, and this is night and day from last year. Last year, they couldn't get a save, right? They tried to run with Spencer Martin and Colin Delia, and it just wasn't happening. Season was getting away from them, and I think they felt that it was time to try a third option and just see what they had in Aturs Silovs. And obviously we know what he did at the World Championship last year. And so I just think all of that, the fact that he's seen the NHL, that he has touched the NHL, that he's played in front of this coach knows him and has a sense. Now, I think Ian Clark would have had a huge say in the ultimate decision on who to bring up here, but I'm not surprised that it is Aturs Silovs, who's had a strange year. And I know a lot of people have pointed to the fact that maybe Tolopilo has taken the starter's job down in Abbotsford. Silovs has 15 wins. 4 of them have been by shutout. Like when it's, feast or famine. When he's on, clearly he's in lockdown mode, but there have been some tough nights, and a lot of people point to the goal from center a couple of weeks ago that got past him, and obviously you don't want to see that from a goaltender.
Let me just ask you this, because you're a master at this. In terms of a Silovs start, if there were to be one, Jeff, are you looking at that Buffalo-Montreal do-si-do next Tuesday, Thursday? Would that be the most optimal spot to get Silovs a game?
Outside of the conclusion of the homestand against Anaheim, I suppose. And so I think it's wait and see. I mean, let's see. This is an opportunity for Casey DeSmith, who had an 8-game run last year for the Pittsburgh Penguins, had a couple of 4-game runs as well. He's done this before. And the way the schedule is spaced out, it's not like there are 4 and 6 where you're, running the risk of turning him into dust. That they have the luxury here of game days for DeSmith if he needs some time off. I mean, he should be well rested. He's been the backup and he hasn't played much of late. So, I'm going to say I don't have a date for Aturs Silovs penciled in. I think this is Casey DeSmith's run right now. And we'll see how he fares against the Colorado Avalanche, getting thrown right into it. I know the Avs are playing tonight in Calgary, but they also have this Nathan McKinnon fellow who leads the National Hockey League in scoring. So there's the challenge front and center. But once they get past the Avs, then, more days off here. Washington, obviously, scuffling along, not going to be a playoff team. And then you get Buffalo and Montreal. So, between the opponents, the level of the opponents, and the scheduling and the spacing, I think it sets up Casey DeSmith. If he holds up his end of the bargain, he can certainly run with the ball here for the next 4 or 5. Then it picks up again with games against Los Angeles and Dallas. And, we'll see where Demko is in his recovery. We'll see where DeSmith is ultimately in the way that he's performing. And if they have to get a game in, then, maybe that is one of the opportunities. I think it's really important, too, guys, that Casey DeSmith has given up 1 goal in his last 90 minutes of game action. The 2-1 victory in Anaheim, and then he wasn't tested a lot, 10 shots by Winnipeg the other night, but did what his job's to stop the puck, and he stopped all the ones that came his way and was part of the shutout with Thatcher Demko. So, I think he can move on now and turn the page from the 8 that he gave up in the 10-7 loss in Minnesota, and I think it was important that he got the win in Anaheim, and then, coming in cold against a good Winnipeg team the other night and did his part there. So he should feel pretty good about his game as he gets set to step in as the de facto starter here for the next, 2, 3, hopefully not more than 3 weeks.
Timing seems perfect for the team too, doesn't it? In terms of they seem ready to support the backup goaltender getting a promotion right now.
Yeah, I mean, look, they've given up 3 goals in the last 4 games on this win streak. They have rediscovered the staples that Rick Tocchet has been harping on. And I think a huge part of that has been discipline and the fact that they've been shorthanded once in each of the 4 games on the win streak. And Tocchett's spoken about that a couple of times here lately, that it allows him to get all 4 lines rolling. It allows him to get guys into the games, that you're not leaning on your penalty killers in high leverage situations. And so guys are fresh. And I think you saw it in the first period against Winnipeg. Like, they were really short shifts. The Canucks were trying to, change every 30 seconds and just get the Jets had played the night before in Seattle. And I think the Canucks wanted to pounce on them. And so part of the strategy, you've heard Rick talk it, when his team is off, a lot of times he points to, how well or poorly they change. But I just thought that first period the other night was as good as the Canucks have looked in a long, long time. And even if Winnipeg hadn't played the night before, I don't know that they stood a chance. The Canucks looked that determined, and to get 5 on Connor Hellebuyck, obviously, was a bonus for them. But yes, I think that sometimes just the presence of the backup is that snap to attention that teams need. But for the Vancouver Canucks, they're in a bit of a groove defensively. And I think this time off, fresh and rested, they should be ready to at least counter whatever Colorado throws their way on Wednesday
don't
night.
change anything if you're the Canucks defensively. Now, we say that, although I think they would be happy to get Myers in. There's a chance they could put him in the game day skate tomorrow, but as you say, he's an extra now. Probably means he skips this one, but then they get another practice day, you'd think, later on in the week, so he shapes up nicely for the Capitals game, at least on the weekend. Any sign of Dakota Joshua? He's LTIR'd. Is he still around the team? Are we talking days, or do you still think this might be some time for Dakota Joshua?
Yeah, I mean, the most recent update we had was Patrick Allvin after the trade deadline, who said 10 days to 2 weeks then. That was Friday, so we've advanced a handful of days through the weekend. I haven't seen him, and that's the troubling part, is out on the road trip, that road trip where they went to Minnesota and Colorado and Seattle, the Mentors trip, he was there. His brother was on that trip, and so he went out on the trip, and he and Carson Soucy skated a couple of times. I saw him skate in Seattle, the morning skate after the group had left the ice, and that all looked really promising to me and encouraging. And then they came back home. There was a practice day where he sat on the bench in sweats and watched, but I hope that he is skating on his own. Again, a hand injury, kind of like Carson Soucy. Mm-hmm. He should be able to skate with the skills coaches before practice, but I think LTIR, that was a retroactive move just because he had been out long enough that he could be placed on LTIR, and that frees up a little bit of space, and every dollar matters, so that they can get,
Silovs up, first of all,
or whatever else they want to do moving forward. So I think that was really just procedural when it came to Dakota Joshua. But somebody had told me that he was going to go on this past road trip, the Anaheim, Los Angeles, Vegas one, and he didn't do that. So I don't know if there's been a setback. I'm not sure what kind of setback you could have with a hand or a knuckle injury. But the bottom line is it's been a month. I mean, they said week to week. We're at 4 weeks now, and he's not part of the practice group here. So I kind of thought maybe we would see him out there, even if it was in a non-contact jersey. But
that's what I was thinking too.
Yeah, Jeff, what kind of setback can you have with that injury? Pearson, Tanner.
Yeah, well,
let's hope not. Just before we let you go, because you got players and coaches to interview, we had a pretty good debate here. Do you think this Thatcher Demko injury scuttles his Vezina chances?
I don't think that he was likely to win the Vezina, so I think it probably closes the book on any sort of late season push that he may have made here. I just think when you look at the Winnipeg Jets, they got a lot of firepower, but a bit of a patchwork defense outside of Josh Morrissey, and yet they are one of the best defensive teams in the National Hockey League, and so much of that is their goaltending. And it's not just Connor Hellebuyck. Laurent Brossoit has been terrific too when they've turned to their backup. But Hellebuyck had a run there, guys, from early November through some point in March where he didn't give up more than 3 goals in a game. This is the NHL. Goals get scored. And he is, in my mind, the best goaltender in the National Hockey League. Now, that's not to suggest that Thatcher Demko doesn't deserve to be in the conversation. I just think that Hellebuyck had started to distance himself. Demko was terrific in the first 6 weeks or so, and then I know that some of the underlying numbers suggested that there had been a little bit of slippage in his play. He's been terrific for the Vancouver Canucks, and it's unfortunate, obviously, that he's not going to be there and available to them every night. But I do think in some ways this is a little bit of a blessing in disguise. It's a forced rest, if you will. When we learned that it wasn't catastrophic and it wasn't going to be season ending, that, I think rest is maybe the best thing possible for Thatcher Demko, knowing the way the schedule works. And they play, the regular season goes till the third week of April.
We just talked about it. Yeah, absolutely.
He's going to get some time there. And so, I think, for my money, it was a 2-horse race, but even at that, Hellebuyck had started to distance himself from Thatcher Demko. So, again, it doesn't discount anything that Demko has done here this season, much as like Quinn Hughes last year. was the second best defenseman in the National Hockey League. He didn't win the Norris, but he still had a hell of a season putting up 76 points. And I think it's sort of that same thing here. There's no shame if you come second and the runner-up to Connor Hellebuyck in the Vezina Derby. But I do think that, Demko would have had to go lights out here over the final however many games, 10 or 12 starts, and he's not going to get that opportunity now.
Great stuff, Jeff. We'll let you get to covering practice. Thank you for this, and we'll catch up Friday.
All right, guys. Thanks.
J-Pat, our Canucks reporter, host, Rink-Wide Vancouver. Boy, saying that it's as much a forced rest, that's a lot happier than out a month. We'll see.
Well, I have wondered, like the 2 to 4 week timeline that was given.
Mm-hmm.
Is it 2 weeks if Casey DeSmith stumbles? Is it 4 weeks if everything's going just fine?
Right. If Edmonton creeps too close, then guess what? It's a 2-week injury.
Yeah.
If there's still cushion, maybe it's a 4-week injury.
Yeah, I mean, there's some logic to that. And that doesn't mean rush him back, folks. That's not what I'm suggesting. But there's always that point where you're not going to do damage. Maybe it's pain management, and you want to put the guy through that if everything's going tickety-boo with Casey DeSmith. Mm-hmm. So I think the results might help pave the way. And the best thing for the organization and really everybody involved is for Casey DeSmith to play really, really well. And that'll only do Casey DeSmith favors in the offseason and for the team to get some wins.
As for Demko's Vezina candidacy, I'm not quite as down on it as perhaps Jeff was.
No, I'm not either.
But I'm also not as bullish on it going forward from here. Like, I think he needs to play a good number of games and be extraordinary if he's got any chance at this point.
I mean, if he played 4 games but got a shutout or 2, I think he's still very much in the mix. I mean, those wins and those shutouts are going to be top of mind.
I think it's got to be more along the lines of like a 6 and 8 game sample, which means he's back on the early end of that 2 to 4 weeks, and he's exceptional from the jump when he does get back.
We'll see.
Mm-hmm. Join us Wednesday, tomorrow, at Park Casino, the official casino resort of the Vancouver Canucks. We're going to be doing a live on location pregame show from 6 to 7 at the BC Kitchen. You get 15% off the game day menu at BC Kitchen with your game ticket. Jeff's going to stop by. We're going to give away some prizes. Park is just steps away from Rogers Arena. 7:30 face-off against the Avs as well. So you
get
have
down
plenty
there
of
early,
time to take in the show. Absolutely.
Park at Park.
There you go. And sign up for Encore Rewards. You get $10 free play to use in the Canucks gaming corner. Now, Grady Sass, a little extra bonus coverage here.
Yeah.
On Sekeres Price Live.
Let's do it.
John Shannon's coming up.
In a season like this, you never want to miss a single second of what's happening on the ice, and you want to be around your fellow fans, right? Well, Greta Bar YVR at 50 West Cordova, the perfect spot to do so. Hey, if you've got tickets, a great place to pre and post. They've got drink specials every single day. And if you don't have tickets, well, stick around and soak up the atmosphere with all your fellow fans, play all the great video games and air hockey, great air hockey set up as well at Greta Bar YVR. We'll see you there, 50 West Cordova.
John Shannon is the former executive producer of Hockey Night in Canada, the co-host of the Bob McCown podcast, and he's a teacher as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Sculpting the young broadcasters of tomorrow.
Right.
Broad and pod.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Folks, we're in trouble.
Well, the Canucks in trouble. John, we sat here last week saying, going to do something. And then it was the old Seinfeld, a day about nothing. How surprised were you that we did not see the Vancouver Canucks feature at all on trade deadline day?
I must admit, I was shocked. I thought for sure that one winger would end up showing up in Vancouver. And, we talked about Tyler Toffoli being that guy. I think it was kind of obvious that Jake Gensel wasn't going to be that guy. But whether it was a Jason Zucker or someone, I thought for sure there would be another player who could help with goal scoring, as if the Canucks need it, that would show up in Vancouver. It it flummoxed me for a couple of days to figure out why what happened. And then, of course, the other side of the story is and what I don't think we'll ever really know, is how dissatisfied they were with Elias Lindholm, and whether that, actually created some conversation with the Boston Bruins for Lindholm's services, and what would, in the end, the Canucks have gotten if they had done a deal with the Bruins. So it was a surprise. Other than, and I mean, Jake DeBrusk was the obvious name, but and then in the end, it was kind of strange to think. But then you go back and you look at, if they had done the Zadorov deal and the original Lindholm deal on trade deadline day, you would have said the Canucks won deadline day. So that's the thing you have to measure.
Ironically, this chatter hasn't dragged Lindholm further into the muck. He's actually played some of the best hockey of his Canucks stay here in the last few. So if there were hurt feelings, he's doing a darn good job of suppressing them.
Yeah, I do think, though, and look at what the Jets did on Saturday night at Rogers Arena. I do think that there's an emotional letdown, an emotional change after deadline time, or there's some exuberance that, hey, I'm still here.
Yeah.
And every manager in the league looks at all of this stuff and weighs and measures it, or even better, measures and weighs it, to think how long will it take for a player to fit in. And perhaps despite that, that first 2-goal outbreak that they had, the Canucks and Lindholm took a lot longer to get to know each other, and perhaps it's a time to be patient with what's going on, particularly now without Thatcher Demko for a while, to know what the Canucks are going to be as they prepare for the playoffs.
So you think there's putting this genie back in the bottle? You wouldn't worry about Lindholm's attitude or commitment or confidence level after all that?
The only thing I would say is, at this point, I do think they have a better sense of whether he's in Vancouver long-term or he's quite simply a rental. And then you have to deal with that. But right now your focus is to get through until the 22nd of April to start the playoffs and go from there. And then, the chips fall where they may after that.
Did you, I'm not sure how much of Alvin you heard on Friday, given that it was a press conference about nothing, but he basically said, dollar in, dollar out for us. It was a cap matter, and also that they had a narrow list of trade targets that they thought could help.
Yeah,
did you buy that? Or
I actually thought he was pretty transparent. I thought he was pretty open and honest. You're right. It was, when you don't do anything, you have to, I'm not sure you can't sit there and say, well, we were after this guy and we were after that guy. But I thought Patrick handled it pretty well under the circumstances. Just trying to, set everybody straight on what their philosophy going into Friday was. And I don't think we can sit here ever and criticize the Vancouver Canucks for not being willing to make a trade, considering that prior to Friday, I think there were 19 trades and the Canucks were involved in 40% of them. So over the year. So it's one of those things where we create an expectation for Friday, nothing happens, and we're let down. And I don't think that's fair when it comes to the Vancouver Canucks.
Man, I take my daughters down to the outlet mall all the time, and I go in a bunch of stores, I look at a bunch of things, but usually I don't buy them. So I'm involved. By
the way, Blake, I want to go to the outlet. I want to go to the outlet mall with you rather than my wife.
Is the family budget capped out as well?
I just, I'm not desperate for anything. It's going to have to jump into my lap for me to actually want to buy it. So, but that's it. Those are all the storylines for the Canucks. So we'll close down the hit for today. Thanks for joining us, John. There's nothing else to talk about. Oh, maybe we should talk to him about Thatcher Demko.
Mm-hmm. How do you think they'll do without Demko? How much faith do you have in Casey DeSmith?
Well,
that pause says it all. That pause says it all, Shannon.
Sure it does. Sure it does. Absolutely. I mean, if you want the cup half full, answer is, thank goodness they have a quality backup. If you want the cup half empty, oh my God, the Oilers are only 10 points behind with 3 games in hand. The first place is not a lock. And that's going to be the real challenge there's going to be a lot more onus on the defense to be better than it has been in the last 6 weeks. And as well as I do, Rick Tocchet will be talking about process and discipline a heck of a lot more. And there's going to have to be a lot more contributions from the forwards to help out Casey DeSmith as well.
Do you think that this team has found its defensive posture though at the right time? I mean, I think we would have worried about this goaltending trouble here, 6 weeks ago, 8 weeks ago, even. But there's been a bunch of 1 goal against games and a shutout here in the last 4 games.
Yeah, no, I certainly feel more comfortable about it, Blake. I really do. But to me, it does go back to the fact that it's a quality backup. There was, I think he's played 19 games. His save percentage is around 900. He's done exactly what he's supposed to do. Now, can he react to the pressure of being a number one? There was a time in Pittsburgh that they gave him the number one job in the short term, and it worked out all right. It didn't work out great. It worked out all right. So from that perspective, I think you have to let me put it this way, not to change the direction. I feel better with Casey DeSmith than I would have with Spencer Martin. Well, I do. And I think that you have to give them credit for being aware of the trials and tribulations of Demko's injuries last year and saying we can't go into a season like this without a quality backup. And that's who they found from Montreal before the season started.
Points in 13 of his 17 starts. I think it's all right there. Any coach would take that from his backup goaltender, that ratio at the start of a season, right?
And they have a better sense of how severe the Demko injury is. And, I can only laugh at a few people who were worried that Demko was being overworked. Well, I'll tell you what, if he comes back healthy, now he's rested. And so rested for the playoffs, which is what you need. You need him, in my opinion, you need Demko to come back and play 3 of the last 5 games of the regular season so that he's in game form again, and then you have your number one goalie ready for the playoffs when they start in mid-April.
Philip Hronek is now the big RFA with Elias Pettersson signed. Patrick Alvin allowed last week that they have made a contract offer to Philip Hronek. Boy, he's got a lot of leverage here as an RFA because he's really been the linchpin to this Canucks season. I mean, he's been the most significant addition over last year and has really keyed that defense and partnered well with Quinn Hughes. What do you think? How urgent is this file for the Canucks? And do you think Hronek's an $8 million guy going forward?
Well, I know his agent, Alan Walsh, thinks he's an $8 million guy. And he, let's face it, he has, if not the most vigilant, one of the most vigilant agents in the hockey world to represent it. We also know that, prior to Christmas, there were some off-the-record discussions between the Canucks and Walsh about Hronek's contract. So from that perspective, I fully expect that there will be some level of not compromise, but understanding of what Hronek means. I don't think term will be the issue for this guy. I mean, he's young enough now that they can deal with him on a long-term deal. But when you have Miller under contract, you have Pettersson under contract, who knows what you're doing with Lindholm. Quinn, you do a long-term deal for big money with Hronek. How does that domino effect start the discussion with Quinn Hughes when his contract comes up in 3 years? I think it's 3 years.
Yeah. What's pushing the downward pressure more on this Hronek number, do you think? Is the fact that Quinn Hughes makes 7.8 and you can't go past Quinn Hughes, or is it the fact that Elias Pettersson probably should have got something with a 12 in front of it, instead took something with an 11 in front of it? Or do you think both of those factors will weigh into the offer and ultimately what Hronek takes?
Well, let me ask you this, because I had a discussion with somebody else about another player and another team. Do you think that Philip Hronek can make more money than Quinn Hughes?
On another team? Like if he went to
right now on the Vancouver Canucks, can Philip Hronek ever make more money than Quinn Hughes?
I think it's a very tough sell with Quinn Hughes. I think you could creep him to $8 million and explain salary cap jump and all the things that inflationary.
The salary cap jump disappeared when you signed Pettersson.
No, but that there's more available space going forward, and that it's been 3 years since Hughes signed his contract, and there's an inflationary effect on players over that period of time. I think you can sell it. I think it's a difficult sell. It'd be great if the number came in right at Hughes.
I think that's probably fair. I think that, and the one thing I will say about, and I know Jim better than I know Patrick, is that they are logical, they have common sense, and there's a sincerity when they deal with these guys that they buy in. I mean, case in point, the Pettersson deal got done after a quiet, private meeting between Alvin, Rutherford, and Pettersson to say, here's where we're going, here's our thinking process, here's what you need to do. And I suspect that those discussions have occurred, at least with Allen, over the Hronek situation. So I think 7-8. If you told me 7-8 for max 8 years for Hronek, I would say sign the deal now and let's get on and worry about somebody else.
Yep. Are you disappointed Phil Kessel isn't going to be in a Canucks uni this year, John?
Well, tell you what, he does have a winning pedigree, Matt. But let's face it, I mean, it was a long shot at best. And when you did see him on the ice in Abbotsford, you did wonder if there was any chance in the short term that he could get into any type of playing shape to help the hockey club. God bless him for trying, and give the Canucks kudos for giving him a chance. But also, you have to be pragmatic. This is a tough business at time, and the Canucks, I thought, saw the writing on the wall when he was in Abbotsford and made the right decision.
You cover the Oilers. You're one of their intermission panelists during regional telecasts. They also were the show about nothing on Friday, but they did an awful lot just prior to. Henrique, Carrick, Troy Stecher, how much do they improve Edmonton? How worried would you be if you're the Canucks sitting where you are watching the Oilers with all these games in hands and coming off a weekend where they swept Buffalo and Pittsburgh?
Oh, they didn't sweep Buffalo. They lost in Buffalo. They did get a point there. It's going to take some time. They did not get faster when they got particularly Carrick and Henrique. Troy Stecher is quite simply there for insurance. I mean, in an ideal world in Edmonton, Troy Stecher never plays. That's not a knock at Stecher, but they live with the 6 defensemen that they have right now. He quite frankly is an insurance policy. Adam Henrique's going to help them at a certain point in the face-off circle when games get tighter in the playoffs. But the question becomes, is foot speed for him, and does that allow them to try to find a way? And by the way, because you should add Corey Perry to that list of guys they acquired too, if we're talking about Lindholm and Zadorov for the Canucks. Corey Perry's addition has helped Edmonton as well. But if they can find a way to take what Henrique's strengths are and grind a little bit more in the playoffs, then the teams in the Pacific have to be a little bit concerned. And I think that a lot of people have been distracted in the Pacific with what Vegas did rather than worry about what Edmonton did.
Is the Western Conference playoff picture done? The Wild pulling the goalie in OT last night to just get one extra point. They played tonight. Flames are hosting the Avs. You think the Flames are in the same thing? They've lost a couple in a row now. And then the Golden Knights versus the Kraken might be the most delicious because the Kraken win. The door is open to Kraken, if you will, chasing down the Golden Knights.
Well, here's the thing about, just to go back to the Minnesota scenario with pulling the goalie. If that had been a team they weren't chasing, I suspect they wouldn't have pulled the goalie. But the fact that it was Nashville, And the fact that Nashville was the target in the Western Conference wildcard, that really did mitigate what John Heinz was doing. That made it that much more important for them to be all in on that rule change. By the way, did you both of you know the rule?
Yep. Yeah.
Good. I can't believe people had forgotten that.
Well, can you believe that Matthew Boldy himself didn't know? Like, if the players
was he born when the rule was made?
But John, it's so important for the players to know that, because they have to play with a defensive conscience in that point. If you send the players over the board and they don't know that, they might be a little more frivolous with the puck than they would otherwise be,
or more nervous.
Maybe.
It's funny, just as a reminder that the great Roger Nielsen, who had such an impact in Vancouver and lots of other places, Roger Nielsen would make his kids in junior hockey. They would give them a rules test at the beginning of every season so that they understood the rules of the game. I think we should probably get back to having coaches give their players, at least in training camp, rules so you understand the rules. So, you don't bitch at the referee too much, but you understand in those scenarios that is actually quite a factor. We had an argument, just as a total aside, in Edmonton was in Pittsburgh on Sunday afternoon, and Stuart Skinner played minute 16, did not have a shot on goal when he replaced Calvin Pickard for that end of the second period. And we had an argument. Well, he didn't face a shot on goal, so Pickard has to get the shutout. Doesn't work that way. The moment the second goalie goes in for 10 seconds, it becomes a shared shutout. So Pickard doesn't get that one beside his shutout. It just becomes a team shutout. The rules are there to and are good for us hockey nerds to understand. We had a shared... I got to tell you, the West is going to be crazy, and I don't think it's settled. And all you do is you need a team to go on a 6-game heater, and all of a sudden people are going to be on the edge of their seat.
We had a shared team shutout here on Saturday, third in Canucks history. You know what we need, John? Hockey needs an official score like baseball to award the shutout in such circumstances.
No, because then the players will sulk at the official score.
That's true.
Just like has happened in baseball, and official scores become in baseball because so meek and mild about what an error is and what it is.
So true.
Because they may not get an interview with the guy after the game.
John, there was legitimately a red phone in the Blue Jays press box at Skydome when I covered the team, and when that thing ran, the hush fell over the press box because everybody knew that was a player, manager, coach calling up from one of the dugouts questioning the official score.
So I think you should retract that request, Matt. I think you should retract that.
Keep coaching them up there in school, John. Thanks for this, and we'll catch up next week.
Cheers, boys.
Hey, everybody. If you're enjoying what you're seeing here, then follow along with Sekeres Price on YouTube. I promise more content coming.
The kids call it subscribe on YouTube.
Well, how about liking it?
Do that as well. Smash it right now.